This meeting is being recorded.
It is. It's being recorded, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us. So we're here today to talk about really an exciting opportunity for our community. The HOME-ARP funding opportunity is over almost $2.4 million that is available through the city of Springfield. And so what we've gathered here to do today is to review some information. Krista Colas from the city of Springfield's Office of Planning and Economic Development is going to share about the HOME-ARP program. It's a unique program created by the American Rescue Plan. I'm going to share a little bit of the data that has come through our strategic planning process over the last year. And then we're going to open the floor for a conversation for you all is the plan. So we're really grateful that you've all joined us. And Krista, I'm going to hand it off to you if you want to share your screen and get us started.
Hi, everybody. I'm Krista Colas. I'm with the city of Springfield. I'm the operations coordinator. I also have Lynn Wooden here. She's our director. And Amber Sinclair from our office is also joining us. We wanted to welcome HUD is also on the call, and our CDBG consultant. And we would like to thank everybody for attending. And we are happy to be partnering with all of you on this wonderful new opportunity. This is a new program unveiled by HUD. And this a lot of activities in this funding was previously not allowed. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now and give you a little presentation. Then Josh is going to give you some statistics and some data regarding the Springfield and Sangamon County strategic plan. We're so excited for this opportunity, and we are here today to get your input, ideas, needs, and what your priorities are. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. Have a good day, everyone, and I will share my screen. Josh, am I good?
You're perfect. You're good.
All righty. Okay, here we go. The city must consult with agencies and service providers whose clientele include HOME-ARP qualifying populations to identify the unmet needs and gaps in the housing and service delivery system. The HOME-ARP targets qualifying populations. We're going to go through the eligible uses, the needs of Springfield, the housing and service, and priorities. The next steps, we're going to prepare our plan. We have a chance to offer questions and answers, and we'll talk about administration of the activities. All of this funding came around through congressional purpose to address the needs of homelessness assistance and support services. This is, as I mentioned, a special allocation of home funds targeted specifically for the homeless and at-risk populations. The city has an allocation of $2,380,397. There are plenty, as always, plenty of rules and requirements to these funds, and they are very similar to home funds, but we have some added flexibility. The qualifying populations are at risk of homeless, those fleeing domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. Other populations where assistance will prevent homelessness or instability. These other populations, I'm sure this group is very familiar with these other populations. We've got homeless who are currently housed, who need additional assistance. We have those with income below 30% of the median income who spend 50% or more of their income on housing, and households with income below 50% of the area median income. And then there's a couple other bullet points that go along. And again, believe this group is very familiar with other populations. We have some eligible uses. We can develop and support affordable housing. We can use it on tenant-based rental assistance. We can do provisional of supportive services, acquisition development of non-congregate shelter units, nonprofit operating capacity building subsidies, and administration and planning. Some supportive services are displayed here. And what we need to do is look at the qualifying populations and identify the needs and gaps in funding. Some of the things you might want to look for, are there any special characteristics of households or housing associated with the instability to consider for the city's inclusion of other populations? We need to identify those gaps in emergency shelter, transition, other permanent housing, and permanent supportive housing. Needs and gaps of service. For instance, the city has identified a gap in possibly the day services. And we will open this up for discussion and see what the group thinks about other gaps in funding. We have some priorities that we have to conduct and perform here. Should the city establish a preference for specifying the qualifying populations or subpopulation? Does the HOME-ARP allow services projects, or do other sources have those same services? The best way to describe the priorities are to identify the qualifying populations, the eligible uses, the income, and the family and household types. What's next? We have to draft an allocation plan and we have to administer those funds. Right now, I'd like to turn it back over to Josh. He is going to talk about our strategic plan to address homelessness, and he's going to give you some statistics and a lot of great stuff that you guys developed during this planning process. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Krista. And we will, as Krista said, we'll go through this, and then there'll be a lot of time for us to be able to discuss, and ask questions about all of this. So one of the exciting pieces of the timing of resource like this is the way that it coincides with the strategic planning work that our community has done. I think we're really well positioned to use these funds in really impactful ways, which is really exciting. So some of the data, and this will be part of the allocation plan as well. This analysis was done through the strategic planning process. Just to give you an idea of gaps in services and how great the need is in our community. In a given year, we have 1,142 people who are active in the homeless system of care. In our community, we only have 230 permanent housing opportunities. And when we look at our data about who accesses those services,
Always looking confused, poor guy.
only about 16% of people who live outside or in shelters ever get access to housing opportunities in our community. From the strategic plan, one of the things that we did is looked at inflow and outflow in the homelessness system. The overall inflow into the system is over 746 people per year. Looking at existing resources and what's available in the community, 591 people make up the annual outflow of the local homeless system of care. So what we see there and anticipate moving forward is a growth in the system of about 155 people per year, unless we come up with new resources to address that need. In particular, we see significant needs for people who are unsheltered or who are experiencing chronic homelessness. 193 people who are chronically homeless annually are chronically homeless annually. So that means they've been homeless longer than a year and they have a disability. 94% of the unsheltered population is made up of individuals without children. That 16% data point we shared earlier Those in shelter, those unsheltered, only about 16% access permanent housing with supports. And then 80% of those successful in accessing housing remain permanently housed. So we see, though we'd like, the success rate to be even higher, we see a lot of people who get access to these housing opportunities be successful in them. Some more data points, and I should mention too, these are essentially screen grabs that are right out of our strategic plan. I'll drop the link in the chat here in just a moment. But all of this is available through that strategic plan. 7% of people in our community, of individuals who experience homelessness, ever access homeless housing resources. 12% of people in shelters leave, only 12% of people in shelters leave to permanent destinations. 88% of people served in rapid rehousing leave to permanent destinations. So here in the plan, really just sort of thinking about the gaps in service, and the housing inventory count is one of the data points that we have connected to the point in time count that we do each year. And so, what we see is a great need in particular for rapid rehousing opportunities, permanent supportive housing opportunities. And often that greatest need is single person households when we look at our local data.
This is just from the continuum of care.
Do you want me to forward this to you?
No,
Here we go. This is just a graph demonstrating what we hope to accomplish. If we can find the resources to point in the direction of the strategic plan, that red dotted line demonstrates that number that we mentioned earlier. We anticipate seeing a growth of 150 people per year beyond existing resources. And that black line going down demonstrates if our community can pull together resources and prioritize them in the best way to create housing opportunities and help people in their homelessness. Some of the data in the strategic plan, again, on the top graph there, those are some of the data points we've already hit. So, to get that line going down and moving in the direction that we want to move, you can sort of see in the bottom two columns or rows there, how we could actually hit that mark. Some of that would involve, minimizing, diverting people from the homelessness system, helping to prevent homelessness. And then a lot of it is going to require creating housing opportunities. We anticipate needing to create over 765 housing opportunities in the next 5 years to reach our goal of functional zero. How that would look, we have a need in 2023 to create 100 rapid rehousing opportunities and 100 permanent supportive housing opportunities. And you can see how we would project that need to continue year over year for the next 5 years, and begins to change as we get on the downward slope of that. Some of the highest priority action steps in the strategic plan, again, you see that 765 permanent housing opportunities there. Sorry, make sure I'm admitting people into the meeting. Some of the other, developing practices that identify and link people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness to crisis housing and permanent housing, ensuring we have enough crisis housing in our community. And then some of the other steps I don't think are necessarily connected to this funding source, but again, you can see those in the strategic plan as well. And then I pulled this. So again, the timeliness of this opportunity and all the work that went into the strategic planning process is really significant. And one of the things that we knew as we did the work in the strategic planning process is that this funding resource would be available. And so one of the things that we tasked the community and the consultants with is to think through how could HOME-ARP be a part of the implementation of the strategic plan. And one example of that would be using tenant-based rental assistance and using supportive services to create a housing blitz for 30 unsheltered individuals or people who are experiencing chronic homelessness in our community. And you can sort of see, I created another slide just to try to break that down a little bit and help you see the impact that these funds could make. So if we utilize the Heartland Continuum of Care coordinated entry process to prioritize those experiencing chronic homelessness, unsheltered households, or those with the greatest service needs, one potential breakdown of these funds flowing out of the strategic plan could be a significant amount of those funds being used for supportive services, a significant amount being used for tenant-based rental assistance. Some of the funds being used for the administration and planning that has to go into all of the back end of facilitating all of this. Nonprofit operating and nonprofit capacity building to help organizations, expand to meet this need. And then the breakdown. So those supportive services and those tenant-based rental assistance, what type of impact could that make? Through the strategic planning process, we came up with a figure of $13,000 to support a person in supportive housing for a year. And so when you break that down and you utilize those numbers that are there on this slide, you could see that these funds could create housing opportunities for 156 households for 1 year. That obviously the number of households impacted by that would go down as people would require additional years of support. But that I think creates a framework, or at least a picture for us as a community to see what the strategic plan advocates for, and the potential impact of funds like these. So with that, Krista, I'm going to hand it back to you, and anything else that you need to add, and then we can make space for whatever conversation can flow from this.
Hi. I just wanted to open it up for discussion and see what everybody thought. I think Josh, you did a great job. I love the presentation, and I want to thank you again for putting this all together. Maybe we could just start it with a little discussion. Does anybody want to elaborate on any of the points that Josh discussed?
I would. So Laura Davis from Helping Hands. I fully support this plan that Josh put forward. Looking at the gaps in services with our agency, we're really focused on becoming a housing focused shelter and trying to move people through the system as quickly as possible. But we can't do that if there's no exits. So we have supportive services available that's funded through the state. We can help provide the supports once they're into housing. But while I understand the city's perspective on a day center, day services, engaging people and building up their hope to get into housing without having those housing opportunities in place just breaks trust. And as we continue to break trust, they stop engaging and they lose hope. So we really need to build our capacity in our community for tenant-based rental assistance, permanent supportive housing, because we just don't have it. We don't have those outs right now. So I support this plan.
Go.
Okay, we can jump in.
I think jumping in is great. Yep. Thanks,
Okay.
Becky.
So I helped with some of the strategic planning process, and I'm so excited because this was the hope that, when opportunities like this presented themselves, we would know what the need was, where the best place was to direct those resources. And so I love the plan that you just kind of outlined, Josh, around that need for housing. And it does seem so timely. We just did a panel discussion at Memorial yesterday about the strategic plan. And that was a point that was brought up, is that, talking to someone out on the street and saying, hey, I can really help you. Do you want to sign up for my wait list here? Just is not a compelling case to make. And so the more that we have, the more that we can build those sources. And I know in the strategic plan, it's a huge goal of units to get established, over the next 5 years. And this would be an awesome way to start out and get momentum for that strategic plan by hitting those first year goals that were outlined to us. So I love that, the suggestion, Josh, that you've just made.
Hi, I'm Jazz Catterall. I'm a lawyer with Land of Lincoln Legal Aid, and I wanted to note up front that because we do receive federal legal services funds, I'm not allowed to kind of take a position on things like this. but I did want to discuss just some of the impact we've been seeing on the ground. I focus on housing, and within that, primarily on evictions. And so with that, I tend to work more with the at-risk populations that were discussed, more so than with people who are already homeless. But one thing I've seen as an impact from the rental assistance that's come through the court, so it's slightly separate from what this program would be, but what I've seen from directly funding tenants with rental assistance is that it's made a huge difference in just the way that these cases go through court. There have been a ton of evictions ever since the pandemic started, and that's not going down yet. And to deal with that, the court has put in some procedural rules to handle that volume. And that's resulted in a lot of tenants, especially those who are representing themselves, just being defaulted. And so that they'll miss something that they're supposed to do procedurally and be evicted without even having a day in court. And these are people who show up to court ready to defend their case and then get evicted before they have the opportunity to do that. And in talking with landlords attorneys too, one thing they've said about this rental assistance is it gives them an option outside of just taking full advantage of the procedural rules that they're given, to say to a tenant on the day they show up, hey, you didn't do XYZ. You're going to be evicted today if we go to court. On the other hand, I do have this rental assistance available. If you haven't heard about it, here's what happens, here's how we fill it out. And that gives both back rent to the landlords, plus, like, and this is really key, future rent, so that landlords have that security of, I know you're paid 3 months into the future, so I'm gonna go ahead and accept this agreement to stay for 3 more months instead of putting somebody out on the street. So again, that's just what I've seen with rental assistance specifically. That's been a huge impact on renters and on landlords, who then actually get both the money that they've been owed and money going forward too.
So just another perspective, of course, Habitat for Humanity focuses on home ownership, so permanent housing in that sense. If you get someone into a rental place for a year and they don't have the advocacy for employment so they can continue it, what do they do after the assistance goes away? And I think that's been an ongoing problem. But Habitat is excited to help with the portions of it of trying to stop people from becoming homeless. There are areas that Habitat can help with that, especially with homeowners. So we're excited about this, and also participated in the strategic planning. So I'm glad something is moving forward.
Yeah, Colleen, it's a great point too. I think it's also, that makes it helpful to emphasize the importance of the supportive services paired with the tenant-based rental assistance, but also the opportunity with these funds for them to be renewable, as long as this funding source allows, right? So there is, some of, depending on, how the funds are allocated and how it's written up, the term could be for a year, or, as I understand it, longer, but it could also be renewable as a person's need continues. And then if, if the process is tied to coordinated entry, it also allows the continuum to say, okay, we're trying to serve a person who maybe they've been homeless longer than a year and they have a disabling condition. We've been supporting them for 3 years, and now they're stable and could be successful if we could connect them to a voucher, or if we could connect them to another program within the continuum. So there would be, with these, there, in any funding that, that our agencies use through the continuum of care, it's never housing only. And, in the strategic plan, as we lay it out, our goal is for rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing in particular, to have 95%, success rates. So that means that, to the degree that those programs are successful, people are stable when the supports go away, or there's connectivity to whatever support would help them to be successful.
I think just to follow up on a couple of the perspectives that's been mentioned, 2 things. One, keeping people in their housing that are housed. Fifth Street operates the homeless prevention program for the first time ever we ran out of money early November. Normally that money helps us get through until at least April, keeping people in their homes, paying utility bills. And two, we were just able, one of the things that we've seen through homeless prevention is that a lot of people are becoming homeless who have never been homeless before. And their first instinct is to go to a motel. Then they get to a motel and realize that that motel costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars a week and they can't afford it. So now they're forced with living in their car, faced with living in their car. And so we have actually just yesterday been able to secure some funding that is going to help keep people in their hotel so that they don't become street homeless. But we cannot use that same funding to then work with them and get them into permanent housing. So looking at it from that perspective, that would be an incredible addition if we could pay their hotel while we work with them to then move them into permanent housing. Just thoughts.
Hi, Penny. This is Claire from Lincoln Land Community College, and I appreciate you all having me here today, and I'm looking forward to learning from all your expertise. I'm coming to this role a little bit later because we had some staff changes, but I'm not unfamiliar with the concerns and issues. But exactly what you said, Penny, our students often, one, we're kind of reacting to the situation because we don't get information or they don't feel comfortable reaching out. So what I'm hoping to do in this role is be more proactive in educating our staff and faculty and support staff about how to advocate best for students so that we're not running into the situation of running out of dollars, staying in a hotel and then living in their car and running out of options from there. And we're in a unique situation because we don't have housing on campus where like UIS and other schools do. So just thank you for letting me be here. I think the plan looks great, and especially the proactive nature of it.
Krista, one of your slides, you were looking at specific populations, and I know that there was one that it talked about people with substance use disorders, but I didn't see anything about people with mental illnesses or co-occurring. That's really primarily who we see. So those supports would need to be in place if that's a target population you're looking for.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Does anybody have any other comments, concerns, issues?
I think I just wanted to really briefly mention regarding the housing and having people, maybe be on assistance for a year and then not be able to make rent after that. That certainly is something that I'm sure does happen. And this won't be news to anyone on this call. But one thing we've really noticed is that once the housing is, I don't want to say under control, but something that somebody's not worrying about 24/7, it really, really helps people focus on something like getting a job or a higher paying job or a mental health condition or a disability under control to the point where they can, hopefully by the end of that time, really be sustaining. I know Josh talked about that too with the other services involved, but again, to put an anonymous face on it, of course, because I can't disclose any people specifically, but I've had people come in who have children and one income stream, and whether they lose that income or it gets cut or some condition comes up, they have to take a week off and they're paid hourly. At that point, they could face eviction over missing rent. And so just having a place to live so that they're not spending their time going to court repeatedly and going to try to find a new housing opportunity and continuing to need to take time off, which often then leads to termination of that employment. Giving people the peace of mind, but also just peace of body to be able to look for better employment or other support services really makes a huge difference. To the point that when we've been able to help people stay in their house, they're typically then able to continue in the rest of their lives as well.
So I just wanted to add something here. And we talked about keeping people in their houses. we actually have a lot of programs here in housing right now. We've have 5 programs for low income folks that they can possibly come in and apply, and we can maybe assist them with some of their needs in their homes. We have a lot of funding right now, and if you guys are running across folks that need to stay in their houses, and we can do some of the code violations and repairs for them. We have like a ton of people coming in right now, emergency furnaces. We have folks that have been coming in that are about to be homeless, and we are able to fix their houses so that they don't have those code violations and they can stay in them. So that's just kind of another piece of what we're trying to do. We are trying to keep people in their houses too. And now with this initiative, I think we can just take this so much further, and so appreciative to have everybody on board and listening so that we can, you know, piece by piece get this done. And I can't thank you all enough for going on. I just wondered, does anybody else have any comments or concerns or?
If I could, this is Bill Kubel. I'd like to add just one little thing. And again, this is a newer program, so it's a little different than others. And one thing I think, you know, that people have been missing with this program is it can serve people who don't necessarily meet HUD's regular definition of homelessness. So, you know, what I'd like to do is just throw out there to see if anybody has any input on this other population. This is one of the qualifying populations defined under HOME-ARP. So, you know, for especially in terms of homeless prevention, since that was mentioned a number of times in the conversation, is we can basically address people who have incomes up to 50% of the area median income. For ESG, we're usually dealing at lower incomes such as 30%. That also have, you know, are shacked up with somebody else in overcrowded conditions. They're exiting a system of care. They're living in a hotel motel. So I believe Fifth Street mentioned that. Or living with other characteristics that can be associated with instability. So are there people out there, are agencies out there seeing maybe some higher income levels above that 30%, you know, not the lowest of the low incomes, or, you know, would like to add anything about, you know, living in the hotel motels or couch surfing, you know, where we can basically reduce, as Josh mentioned, you know, reduce the inflow into the system through homeless prevention.
I can speak on that. We are in the process of developing a program. We've got kind of a pilot project going, not necessarily for higher income, but for people who don't meet the HUD criteria for chronic homelessness, but require that higher, more intense level of case management and supportive services. So to be able to use this fund for that population would be incredibly helpful.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Are you guys looking to divide up these funds like on a few different focuses, or are you looking for like one primary kind of place to invest with this opportunity?
So at this point, we're not really sure how we're going to divide up the funds. That's why we're having all these, we're going to have a series of presentations to get everybody's input. No firm decisions have been made yet. Right now, that's why this is so valuable and such great input, because we are going to be working with Continuum of Care to develop this project. And I just can't appreciate all your input. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
So when do you see these funds actually hitting the streets?
Well, we have to go through the planning process. We do have a deadline that we do have to get our plan implemented. And then once that's in the system and HUD approves it, then we can hit the streets with the funds. I'm not too sure yet what that timetable looks like. Maybe Taylor, could you chime in for me and see when you think we might be able to use these funds?
Yeah, hi everybody. I think most of you know me. I'm Taylor Kiley from the Chicago field office. I am your HUD rep and overseeing the HOME-ARP funds for the city of Springfield. The deadline to have jurisdictions submit their HOME-ARP plans is March 31st, and that was a recent deadline that was implemented. And so we're working off that timeline. Shortly after that, I think my internal checklist is 45 days, but most of you know I get my work done pretty quick. So I'll be working as quickly as possible to make sure that we get this in approval status so that you can begin to do what you need to do as far as your internal process with the RFQ, RFP, all those different things might take some time. But I think most of you are probably used to that coming from the city. And so thinking through that, it would hopefully be sometime later in the 2023 calendar year.
Thank you, Taylor. Does anybody else have anything?
Real quick, just for everybody to consider, are there any gaps of services that haven't been addressed? I know when we had the pandemic, there seemed to be an increase of youth homelessness and women homeless, especially on the streets. And so I'd like to get people's thoughts on that, of gaps of services associated, especially with those two populations, or any other items that might not have been covered with the Heartland House strategic plan or anything else regarding homelessness.
Shannon, I see you have your hand up. You're welcome to jump in and unmute and chat at any time.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm on Shannon's phone. This is Officer Newman because she's in another meeting. I couldn't get the video going here. But in reference to what Mayor asked, we have a large issue with those who are aging out of foster care throughout the state, or people who are ward of the state. We're seeing a lot of that with the youth, as the mayor mentioned, a lot more youth and women on the streets here. And a lot of that is due to there not really being resources for children who are just aging out and couch surfing because they're no longer wards of the state. That's been a major issue.
Yeah, so I was going to mention that Fifth Street's Youth in Crisis program that works with former wards through DCFS. We have doubled cases since the pandemic. Our program is probably running about 70 cases at a time right now. Pre-pandemic for youth, we were probably 30 to 35 cases at a time. So that is absolutely correct. And same with our Norman program, which is also DCFS related, for people who are at risk of losing custody of their children because of homelessness or near homelessness. Those cases have nearly doubled. Pre-pandemic, I had one case manager. I have 3 today running maximum caseloads. So, and I'm looking for a 4th. So that is absolutely correct. It's a huge issue.
So thank you, Penny. Does anyone have anything else that you guys want us to look into? Do you have any other gaps in funding that you can kind of see? We've talked about a lot of stuff today. Again, we thank you. The city is very appreciative of your input. Any other gaps that you see?
Yeah, can I ask, so how does this, how will this affect your McKinney-Vento population in Springfield? Like District 186, I know has currently 132 McKinney-Vento kids. Is there going to be money available for support services for them per se?
Hi, Mike. This is Bill Kubel. As long as they qualify as one of those 4 qualifying populations. So if they're literally homeless, at risk of homelessness, victim of domestic violence, or that other qualifying populations, which is a little more flexible, they would qualify for services.
Thank you.
Krista, I know in one of your slides you laid out next steps, and I think Jazz asked for your email. I put it in the chat there a little bit earlier too. But in terms of where we go for here, if people have additional comments, do you want them to email them to you, or what's your preference on that? And then could you just remind people of what happens next from here?
Sorry about that. I was having a problem with my mute button. Yeah, absolutely. We have an email. It's called OPED. I'm going to put it in the chat. .info@springfield.il.us. And I will spell the word Springfield right in the chat. And you guys can send whatever comments you have. Again, we're going to be talking to folks maybe that didn't get involved. We're not able to attend the call because I think that we probably don't have everybody on here that probably would fit in the criteria for the grant. So we might have to reach out again, but I welcome any comments, any kind of thing you guys want to add. You might not have wanted to speak today for whatever reason, but please do not hesitate to reach out to us and we will consider everything and anything, okay?
And then from there, basically a draft of the allocation plan gets created, right? And then sort of goes through the same public processes that the city does with other funding
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, we'll be having we'll have our formal open hearing and we'll invite everybody out again. We'll go through our citizen participation process and have a draft of the plan, and then it'll open up for comments too, and we can make changes if we need to. And so this is just the first of a series of meetings, and we're very, very appreciative that you're on today. And please feel free to email. Did you guys get my email on there?
It is. Yep. It showed up in the chat.
Okay, great. And feel free to email me anytime. And we'll consider about everything. Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah, the finalized draft, I believe, for submission are the finalized versions in March. So it really is appropriate because our fiscal year ends in February. So this possibly could be part of the city's budget discussion. It just depends on how far along we're at with that draft. But regardless if it's in the budget or not, either way, it has to come before council for ordinances once we start dispersing funds of any type. But this is very helpful with regards to the outreach process. It's about getting feedback from the public and what is believed to be the needs to address the homeless situation associated that we need to associate with the ARPA allocation. So thanks for everybody's participation, but we'll have I think pull everything together by the end of January without a doubt, and then have a draft out by first part of February would be my guess. Unless Krista or Bill or somebody else feels otherwise.
I think that's a good plan, Mayor.
That's sounds good. Well, everybody, we thank you and appreciate you for joining today, and thank you for the city and your partnership in this, and we'll look forward to moving forward.
Bye, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.